Alright folks, this is your girl Chi Chi coming back with part 2 of the Paula Deen madness. Again, for those of you who didn't watch the first part, go back and watch the first part and then come back and watch the second part, okay? So, where are we? I'm going to just jump right back into this and read this to you guys. Again, for those who don't want to read it for yourself, I read it to you. Or if you want to view it, I'll put the link in the description box so you can read it yourself. Okay, this is pretty much the lawsuit itself, what was actually filed in court by Lisa Jackson, the person who's accusing Paula Deen and her brother of this sexual harassment and racial discrimination. So I'm going to continue where I left off. Let's see here. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, I was in a little rant about them having the African American employees coming through the back door like they did in the days of Jim Crow. Boy, you can't tell me that some of this stuff that I'm reading here that's being, alleged or accused in this document, that Paula didn't know this was going on. You can't own, you can own a restaurant or own a business and not know what's going on if you're not in tune to what's going on, or if you don't care. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if I owned anything, a restaurant, 20 of them, I don't care how many I owned, I would be checking in on my people to make sure they're being treated right, make sure my business is running right, make sure my money's right, you know what I'm saying? Because I got to still make sure everything is going good. So you can't tell me she didn't know what was going on. And she grew up with her brother, so she knows what type of man he is. And if you choose to have somebody running your business that you know may be a problem for you, which also makes you act up when you're around that person, then you know what? You need to check yourself at the door and check what you're doing. Okay? Well, she's getting ready to get checked. Well, anyway, let's see here. All right, point 53 says, African American staff persons at Uncle Bubba's restaurant are required to use one restroom that is in the back of the restaurant and is not the customer restroom. White staff was allowed to use the customer bathroom. So, Jim Crow laws, you can't use the same bathroom as myself. Alright, African American staff persons stationed at the back of Uncle Bubba's restaurant are not allowed to go to the front of the restaurant. Miss Jackson hired 2 African American hostesses. Their position required them to be stationed in the front of the restaurant. Bubba Ayers complained repeatedly about one hostess being out front, and she was later fired for allegedly stealing a white customer's purse. Now, the police were called and the young woman was searched, but she was not arrested and no charges were brought. Mr. Ayers demanded that the other African American hostess be moved to a position in the back of the restaurant where she could not be seen by the customers. So he made sure both of those black women were out of the front of that damn restaurant. Wow. Miss Jackson and her employees were surrounded in the workplace with the most vulgar and obscene racial comments, including the following. Miss Jackson was meeting with a vendor in her office at Uncle Bubba's restaurant when Bubba Ayers entered the office and slammed the door behind him and stating, and I quote, "I wish I could put all those niggers in the kitchen on a boat to Africa." End of quote. On approximately Friday, July 20th, 2010, Bubba Ayers confronted an African American male kitchen staff person and repeatedly screamed at him and physically and violently shook him, as set forth in detail in paragraph 60 below. Okay, so that's down about 4 more paragraphs. In Miss Jackson's presence, Bubba Ayers said to his African American security guard and driver, and I quote, "Don't you wish you could rub all that black off you and be like me?" The security guard responded, and I quote, "I'm fine the way I am." Whereupon Mr. Ayers replied that, and I quote, "You just look dirty. I bet you wish you could." Wow. In the presence of Miss Jackson and Uncle Bubba's restaurant manager and a vendor, Bubba Ayers stated that, and I quote, "They should send President Obama to the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico so he can nigger rig it." Wow, you talking about my president? You better watch yourself. in the presence of a vendor who traps wildlife, like, raccoons and stuff like that, I guess, for the restaurant. And Miss Jackson, Bubba Ayers stated, and I quote, "You also got a bunch of coons in this kitchen you can trap." End of quote. The kitchen was primarily staffed with African Americans. Bubba Ayers told jokes using the word nigger in front of the coordinator of a fundraising event at the Bethsaida Boys Home. The coordinator, not employed by defendants, expressed to Miss Jackson her discomfort with Mr. Ayers and his language. So she got a witness right there that could testify to the fact, because she doesn't work for Paula Deen, that she wasn't comfortable with, she can testify of what language he was using and what he was saying. Okay? Now, Mr. Schumacher on multiple occasions told jokes or ridiculed the President of the United States using the word nigger. So here you go, you got the person in charge of your pay, in charge of your, Lord have mercy, talking about my president. Well, just saying the N-word, period. Alright. In addition to being the personal target of sexually harassing behavior, Ms. Jackson suffered from having to experience the same degrading and humiliating behavior directed at her staff. Ms. Jackson also suffered from having to experience the racial discriminatory humiliation of her African American staff. During her tenure, Ms. Jackson built a family of committed staff from whom she cared deeply. She was their supervisor and was responsible for providing them a safe work environment free from sexual and racial harassment. Despite many efforts to provide such a work environment, she was unable to do so. Bubba Ayers' conduct interfered with Ms. Jackson's relationships with the staff she called family and upon whom she relied to accomplish the business of running a restaurant, causing her immense personal, emotional, and physical distress. Employees came to her to complain and for help which she was never able to fully provide, despite seeking such help from managers and the attorney for the Paula Deen family of companies and from Paula Deen herself. Ms. Jackson was personally aggrieved and injured by the discriminatory harassment and abusive treatment of her employees. So she's basically, talking to the attorneys in the company, talking to Paula Deen herself, complaining to everybody, anybody that would listen, people who wouldn't even listen. She was complaining, hey, this shit got to stop. Nobody, it was falling on deaf ears. Nobody was listening. Violence in the workplace. During a meeting called by Bubba Ayers in the Uncle Bubba's restaurant kitchen one afternoon, Bubba Ayers began beating on his chest and challenging anyone and everyone in the kitchen to fight him. He screamed so loud that spit was coming out of his mouth as he said, "Come get some." Quote, "Come get some. Come on, you want a piece of me? Meet me on the dock, you motherfuckers." Oh, Lord. That's what he was saying. I quoted that. That's not me. Miss Jackson scanned the room in horror and saw her staff, recognizing the look of fear, disbelief, and helplessness in the eyes of individuals from the lowest working socioeconomic stratum of the community who know personally outside the workplace the feeling of intimidation, violence, and berating behavior. Mr. Ayers then stumbled out of the back door to his truck and he was gone. Miss Jackson's job was then, as it was many times after this incident, to control the damage so that she could both confront her staff but also retain their services for the benefit of Paula Deen, Bubba Ayers, and the restaurant. So pretty much she had to mop up his mess. She had to, once he left, she had to coddle and say whatever she could say to the people, hey, to get them to continue to work there, because these people were outraged themselves and humiliated and embarrassed and angry, at the behavior. But she was such a good manager that she was able to keep these people there working hard for her, even though it was actually working hard for Paula Deen and the racist Bubba. Okay. On July 20th, 2010, Miss Jackson's report of a sexually harassing comment by a white staff person toward an African American kitchen staff at Uncle Bubba's restaurant brought two African American witnesses to the office the small office where Miss Jackson was required to share with Bubba Ayers. Seething with anger and red in the face with concern that the African American male kitchen staff person might speak to someone about this incident, Mr. Ayers repeatedly screamed at him, asking him what he saw. The witness answer was, "Can I plead the Fifth Amendment?" Unsatisfied with the response, Mr. Ayers physically and violently shook him and stated, "Fuck your civil rights. You work for me and my sister Paula Deen." Saying, that's a quote. Saying further, and quoting, "You're not going to get me sued over some little bitch." Mr. Ayers proceeded to physically and violently shake this individual. Miss Jackson was in the small office with both Mr. Ayers and this witness at the time. She and others nearby and in the kitchen feared for their physical safety, not knowing how far the physical violence might be taken by Mr. Ayers. So he's sitting up here shaking this grown man, the man's scared, because you got to understand something. People who are not the most sophisticated individual, and they're based on, it seems like where this place is. It's it's rooted in a community where everybody knows their place per se. That and he's feeding in on that, where he feels as though I can do what I want to do. It doesn't matter. These laws have always applied in the past. They're going to apply in the present and the future, and I don't care. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. And nobody's going to do whatever. So he's thinking that because he has all this money and he's the part business owner, that he can just talk to people any kind of way and treat people any kind of way, and he's been doing it for so long. It's in his blood. He's not going to change. I don't care what you do. People like that don't change. They may cut back on some of the things they may say. They may learn to try to pick their battles. But some people just can't do that, and it's not in them. And if he's been talking to people like this and disregarding people and just being nasty, he's gonna be that way the rest of his life. And the problem that I have is that Ms. Deen knows her brother. Okay, you're running a restaurant with this guy. You grew up with him. You know him. I have 3 sisters, and I know each one of them. They're good people, but I know them. I know which one is the nicest, which one's the meanest, which one does this or that. We know each other. So there's no way that if one of my sisters was talking about white people or any other nationality or race of people like a dog and basically couldn't stand them or was saying things, she wouldn't be working with me. Look, these are the conditions. We're going to work together. This is what you're going to do. Even if it's a successful business and we're partners, it would just come down to the point of, look, you know what? I run the business. You be the silent partner. Silent means take your ass home and don't say nothing. Because you're not going to mess up this money that you okay? You're not going to mess this money up that we have to make. Period. That's how it would be. But that's all she had to do. That's all Miss Deen had to do, was put her foot down and not, allow him to entertain racial and sexual crap, in the presence of people, to the point that she was overlooking it and didn't care because it was her brother. Blood is thicker than water theory. I'll fire you, but I'm going to keep my brother here. See, she fired the male manager that allegedly was sleeping with the employees. And then when she found out somebody was getting ready to go run and tell that homeboy was getting ready to go and run and tell, she fired him, okay, and promoted Miss Jackson, okay. But who she should have been firing, along with the guy she fired, was her brother. Period. Run and tell that. Okay. Now, the staff of Uncle Bob's restaurant was in a constant state of fear awaiting Bubba Ayers' arrival at the restaurant and any required interaction with him. So every day these people were coming to work stressed out, scared that they was going to lose their job. They were being humiliated and just disregarded and just treated like trash. Okay, all over the dollar bill. Money, 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 money. All over the money. All right. The stress of repeatedly taking on the role of anticipating Bubba Ayers' violence moderating it to the extent possible, and playing the go-between role with her staff caused Miss Jackson enormous stress. Stress that caused chest pains and evolved into panic attacks that would often begin when Bubba Ayers' truck pulled into the parking lot or upon appearance of the white cup. The styrofoam cup poured almost full with whiskey at approximately 10 a.m., whereupon Bubba Ayers began his day of drinking and abusive behavior. When the truck pulled up or the white cup appeared, staff would scatter, leaving Miss Jackson to manage Bubba Ayers. So he was getting drunk at work every day. Every day you're not even supposed to be drinking while you're on the job. I don't care if you are the owner of the business. If you're actually in the business, supposedly helping to run it, whether you're in the back doing numbers or whatever it is, you shouldn't want to drink at work. Drinking and working and drinking don't mix. Okay, working and mixing and drinking does not mix. So this lady, is getting sick. I've experienced that before in a situation. When I've worked, and someone was basically doing something racially against me. I've had that happen before, and I understand where she's coming from. It does make you feel sick if you can't do anything about it, and you're busy trying to find another job so that you can leave the one you're at, but you can't just leave and go just anywhere, because if you're making a certain salary, you're not gonna make you don't want your family to suffer because some a-hole is thinking with an evil mentality. You come to you sick. I understand you feel nauseous. It's like your body breaks down because this person is getting so deep into your psyche. Because there's just certain things you can't do to control another person's actions. It's disturbing, and it can cause you to have problems. I've been there, done that. So I understand. She getting ready to get paid. I'm gonna just tell you that right now. Okay. So all right. Let me see here. The outrageous and unlawful conduct thrust upon Miss Jackson's staff was extremely distressing to Miss Jackson and others. After cleaning up Uncle Bubba's restaurant upon her arrival, she staffed it with individuals who were poor, but they were honest, hard-working, and committed to making the restaurant a success. Miss Jackson was responsible for providing them a safe and lawful work environment, but despite Miss Jackson's repeated complaints to every level of management and ownership, she was unable to provide that environment. For over 5 years, Ms. Jackson made numerous and frequent complaints of racial and sexual harassment and abusive treatment to the highest levels of corporate management and ownership, including defendants Paula Deen and Bubba Ayers, Paula Deen Enterprises Chief Operation Officer, the COO, and Director of Operations, Teresa Fugger, the Certified Public Accountant, CPA for the Paula Deen family of companies, Carl Shoemaker, and to the Attorney for Defendants, James P. Gerard. The conduct was universally known and tolerated within the ownership and management levels of the corporate enterprise and by corporate counsel, and no remedy was offered. Ms. Jackson's pleas for relief from the harassment to senior management also took the form of requests made to Ms. Fugger and Mr. Shoemaker for a transfer anywhere in the company, even if it required a pay cut. But she was told by them that Paula Deen would never let her leave Uncle Bubba's restaurant. The same request by Ms. Jackson was made directly to Paula Deen, who told Ms. Jackson she could never leave Uncle Bubba's restaurant. So she came to Paula Deen and was trying to get out of that mess. And Paula said, nope, I ain't got nowhere else for you to go. If you want to work here, this is where you got to stay. Corporate counsel James P. Gerard would frequently call Ms. Jackson at home in the evenings and on the weekends to discuss and sympathize with her the discriminatory conditions and abusive treatment she confronted. The harassment and abuse was severe in its form and pervasive in its application, and despite her numerous and frequent complaints, and despite the continuing knowledge of the behavior by the highest levels of management, ownership, and corporate counsel, and despite the patent illegality of the conduct, no remedy was forthcoming. Discharge from employment. In the spring and summer of 2010, Ms. Jackson's conditions of employment became intolerable. Having complained repeatedly and for years of harassment, discrimination, and abusive treatment to the highest levels of management and ownership to no effect, so in March 2010, the general manager of Lady & Sons restaurant, General Manager Dustin Walls, who is one of the best friends of Paula Deen's son, Jamie Deen, threatened to fire all the monkeys in the kitchen, referring specifically to the African American kitchen staff. Employees throughout the corporate enterprise became aware of the comment. Ms. Jackson's staff at Uncle Bubba's restaurant became aware of the comment, placing upon Ms. Jackson further significant personal management challenges. At Paula Deen's direction, Mr. Walls visited Ms. Deen at her home, whereupon she slapped him on the wrist. She did not want to do that, and she regretted it, but she was concerned that otherwise the NAACP would become involved. According to Carl Shoemaker, we have to show we are doing something. Wow, that's quoted. The workplace culture created by defendants is further evidenced by the initiative bringing in human resource consultants shortly after the monkey incident. Lady & Sons restaurant general manager Dustin Walls was so rude to the consultant that she stopped her interview with him. Bubba Ayers did not even show up for his interview with the consultant. So see, there you go right there. He didn't even care. He just felt like, I'm not going to sit up here and let somebody tell me I can't say nigga. I can't say call people monkeys. I can't sit up here and talk about sex and show my pornography in here. My name is Bubba Ayers, and my name is Bubba Ayers. Boy. In February 2010, because of the complaints of harassment, discrimination, and abuse, and as a tool to professionally address the complaints, Carl Shoemaker placed Ms. Jackson in charge of working with corporate counsel James P. Gerard to draft a new employee handbook that would be acceptable to the Paula Deen family of companies. Through spring of 2010, with Mr. Gerard, Ms. Jackson performed that work and submitted the final draft to Mr. Shoemaker on or about May 2010. Further discussion with Mr. Shoemaker during spring 2010 involved the prospect of hiring for the Paula Deen family of companies a human resource management professional that could address Ms. Jackson's complaints of harassment, discrimination, and abusive treatment and related issues. With a ray of hope on the horizon for professional management of these issues, and after numerous versions edited by Ms. Jackson, Carl Shoemaker and corporate counsel James P. Gerard, the employee handbook languished without adoption or implementation on Mr. Shoemaker's desk. So she helped him draft this big and new employee handbook that was going to cut out all of this crap and put everything in line and basically spell it. So he's making it seem like that they're having a relationship and it's not even happening. So guys, basically the next couple of paragraphs are just basically saying how she decided, that she was just going to end her employment. And it says here, on August 9, 2010, Ms. Jackson ended her employment with defendants. Now, they're trying to say, what I've heard is that she was fired. This is saying she quit. She left because she was just so messed up at this point that she couldn't do anything. She had no power to do anything, and she got tired of the crap. Okay, so the other part of the document is basically saying that all these people, these vendors and all these people, business owners in the community who knew she did great work, were saying, hey, if you ever want to, leave Paula Deen's restaurant, hey, I'll hire you, come over here. But once she left Paula Deen's place, guess what? She was blacklisted, blackballed. Nobody would hire her. Okay? So the little good old boy community got together some of the people who had promised her a job. I'm not saying everybody in that community, in that place is like that, but those who promised her a job, who now turned their back on her, they're in that little clique. So she had to actually leave Savannah to find a job, to be able to support herself. Now that's ridiculous. Now I'm gonna say this to you. All these companies that are dropping her, because I love Paula Deen. I thought she was just the best thing since sliced bread. And I was saying in my other video that I think that Oprah can help her. Now I did see on the news that she's joined forces with the Rainbow Push Coalition with Jesse Jackson. Because Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton always try to make sure that they're helping people that are disenfranchised or if things go wrong. But I don't know if Mr. Jackson read these charges before he linked up with her. My thing is, everybody deserves a second chance. Everybody deserves to do things better. But she's had more than 20 chances, from what I'm reading over those 5 years, to correct the problem, and she did nothing. She actually allowed it to happen, and she engaged in it as well. So Miss Dean's not who I thought she was. And I know sometimes, I do know there's two sides to every story. I do know that. But I'm going to tell y'all something. There's more stories to this picture. You know why? All this ignorance and utterance, all this stupid crap. I'm telling you. I mark my words. This is going to be a class action lawsuit. This is going to turn into a class action lawsuit. Okay? You can say you heard it here first. I'm telling you. Because if you have all of this behavior, this has been going on for 5 years. Just imagine how many people have been fired or quit that job that are going to be witnesses. Now, there's a lot of money floating in the camp. I just hope that there's nobody that's going to try to intimidate these people from testifying or for giving their statements. Because based on what I've been reading, Miss Jackson did the smart thing. Every day that she went home, it looks like she was documenting what was going on in that restaurant, what was bothering her. It's on record, it's on file. A doctor, actually, she was seeing a doctor and was telling the doctor, what was happening to her at work, which was causing her to have the stress and strain. So that's been, us on the record as well. So, a lot of these things can't be denied, okay? Not if everybody else heard it. So, what has to happen is for her attorney to go in and talk to the people at the restaurant and let them know, hey, don't fear retaliation, because guess what? If they fire you because you're actually speaking up, that's retaliation. They can be fined and sued for that. So basically, this is a win-win situation for the employees that have been disenfranchised. And I bet you it's going to turn into a class action lawsuit. And that's why all of these people are pulling out. Because like I said, I was talking to my family and I was like, why are they pulling all of these things? I mean, she had a book deal, a cookbook that was supposed to be coming out this October. Now that book deal is gone. The other 4 books she's supposed to be writing that was in a deal as well, that's been gone. That's been pulled. So I mean, even the casinos are taking her stuff out of the restaurants, and I mean, it's crazy. But now I understand why they're doing it, because nobody wants to be associated with someone who's using this type of behavior in this day and age and trying to get away with it. Not putting a lid on it, but still allowing it to happen. So even if you don't go in there and do it yourself, if you know it's happening and somebody's reporting something to you and you don't do anything, then you are just as liable as the person that's doing it. So guess what? She's getting ready to get hit in the pocket. And that's generally how some people feel. They want to hurt you, they're going to hurt you in your pocket. And that's why all of these deals, all of this stuff is going, because these people are thinking, I don't want anything to be tied to us. I don't want any of this mess to come back to us. So these all of these executives and all of these different businesses, from Target to Walmart to Barnes and Noble, all these people, they had a decision they had to make. Are we going to keep her? I mean, I heard someone say on a talk show the other day that she's $100 million whale. Pretty much that's a gambling term. That these are people who have big money that can spend big money because they have deep pockets. And that she can make you money. But guess what? She can make you money, but she's bringing you bad press now. And I can understand that, it's getting ready to get deep, y'all. It's getting ready to get real deep. And I'm just very interested to see how things are going to play out from this point on. And like I said, Oprah Winfrey is a very forgiving person. I've seen her forgive some people that, did some things wrong. And, I love the fact that she has Iyanla Vanzant back in the game, because Iyanla and Oprah together are a force to be reckoned with. So she's forgiven people for things before, but this right here, I don't know. I mean, Paula's going to have to do a lot of groveling to really get things going. And see, the public, we got a lot of people that are outraged, that are angry, because I was kind of mad at first that these people were taking all this stuff from her. But now that I've read this, like I said, I know there's 2 sides to every story. Well, some people say 3 sides: your side, my side, and the truth. But you got to understand something. There are from what I'm reading, more than 50 witnesses that can say they've heard Paula say that Paula has been there when Bubba said some of this stuff. You got witnesses to say that, you know, this girl, this Miss Jackson has reported the stuff to Paula, has reported the stuff to corporate. She has probably stuff that she's written and documented herself that she sent out and made copies of. So, yeah, these people, I'm telling you, they're getting ready to get paid. They are going to get paid because you cannot do this kind of thing. So, folks, you know, for those of you all that, you know, I'm sorry. Like I said, I loved Paula Deen. I thought she was a great person, but you know what? Just because somebody smiles on television and, you know, it looks beautiful and can be sweet and can cook, doesn't mean that they're your friend. Well, what do you guys think about that? Let me know. Leave me some comments. Let me know. If I find anything else, I'll come back with another part, with a part 3 or whatever, and let you know what else I find out. My dog's scratching the door because she wants to come in. But anyway, this is your girl Chi Chi signing out, folks. Get the tea with the Chi. And hey, subscribe. Don't just watch. Subscribe. Give thumbs up, boo-boo. Thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I got more stuff coming at you. Thanks and enjoy.